Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world you all are. Welcome to this presentation on the integration of social networks in project portfolio management. We thank you for joining us. We are joining you from Denver, Colorado, home of the Denver Broncos, if anyone out there cares about football in the U.S. And I'd like to do a quick introduction of our team. So I'm Rose Blackburn, President and CEO of QuantumPM. And I've spent a lifetime in the project portfolio management field. My background is in information technologies. I've done a lot of software development and then moved on from that to running projects in IT. So ran a lot of projects as a project manager and then moved on into portfolio management before starting the company. I'd like to give my colleague Lou Bacchi a moment to introduce himself as well.
Hello, everybody. Lou Bacchi here. I'm a senior manager here at QuantumPM. Like Rose, I've been involved on the management side of projects in IT and business management, and I've been here at QuantumPM a little over 7 years and help our customers with implementation of project and portfolio management solutions.
So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started into our presentation. We wanted to talk today about the integration of social networks in project portfolio management. There are so many different kinds of technologies that you can use, and it gets, of course, terribly complicated. But we have a lot of background in running large projects, and in my own personal experience, the largest project I think I ever ran was a 200-person project with a virtual team, so all over the country, different time zones, different offices, different job roles, and so forth. So very complicated. But for me, that was a simpler time in terms of technology. So the only thing we had to work with at that point in time, email. We had a shared file system, and we were using an ancient version of Microsoft Project, one that I'm not sure would run anymore in the current world. So a much simpler technology kind of time frame. But communication then and now has always been the most important thing you can do on a project. So that's what we wanted to share with you today, is how to take advantage of all the technology that there is for us for social networking and to use that to your advantage as a project manager. Just a quick introduction to our company. Our company's vision and mission is all around simplifying the way people do their work. We do an awful lot of project management in organizations these days. So what we like to do in our company is try to make that process as simple, logical, repeatable as possible for any organization that's working on it. We do our standard project portfolio management, work management kinds of solutions, and then we add to that capabilities around software implementation, developing our own software, such as Innovation Director, a few other items, and we do the entire picture from concept of putting a project management system in place like Project Server all the way through supporting it through its entire life cycle. So what we've learned through that process is a lot of things around communications, and what I wanted to do here for just a quick second is give you a little teaser that there will be some giveaways we're going to do at the end of the session today. So make sure that you stay tuned in and stay involved with us through this process. And as we get to the end of it, there will be some giveaways that we'd like to share with you. So hopefully you'll be one of the lucky ones to be a winner. So today's topics. We want to talk about, obviously, communication in project portfolio management, from the science, from the background of what communication is and what it's about, and then how we apply that, all of that through a technology world that we live in today. We want to make sure that everybody understands that this communication process is definitely a two-way street, very bi-directional. So there's got to be mechanisms for feedback, for status, for updates of your entire team and all the stakeholders involved. To do that, you have to know the message that you're providing. You have to know the audience that's going to be receiving it, and make sure that you have the feedback mechanisms built in. From there, we want to introduce those topics to you and then spend most of this presentation demoing what that looks like in the social networking world that we have available. So let's talk first about project portfolio management communications. We consider it to be the #1 success failure point for project portfolio management. I think most organizations, most analyst communities agree with that. When a project goes wrong, there's always something about, well, we didn't know, or this wasn't communicated, or all of the failures around communication. So success means you have to have a system in place for communications that's really optimized. Call it the Goldilocks theory. Not too little, not too much. Too little, people don't know what they're doing and they can't figure out where to go next. Too much, you tend to get to the possibility of people setting an ignore switch. So much data coming at them, they don't know what's important, and they simply ignore it all. So that's a possibility. One of the things that you need to do is make sure you optimize. Then making sure that you get the right message for the audience. You have project managers speaking to team members. You have project managers speaking to stakeholders of various types, end users, as well as sponsors. A lot of different people, they don't all have the same message. So you've got to tailor it to meet them. Along with that, you need to make sure that message that you're sending out is consistent so people know where to go to get the right information. They know when to expect it, all those kinds of things as well. And then, of course, have an intuitive feedback mechanism so that when things go out, people know how to communicate what they're thinking and what they need to do. We will spend a little bit of time at the end of the session today taking questions and hopefully being able to answer some of those for you. So I'm going to go through a few more slides here and then turn things over to Lou so that he can talk through some details. So first thing we wanted to share around communication is the complexity of the communication process. This is a formula that's been used for a long time around communication channels and how to figure out how many different ways there are for you to communicate to your audience. So N in this example is the number of team members, stakeholders, people involved in your project. To get to the number of communication channels, you multiply that total number by the same number minus 1 and then divide by 2. So this is a question that if any of you are going for your PMP certification, it's definitely in that test. Communication is a heavy part of the PMP exam, so one of those little things that you'll want to make sure that you know. So that's the basic formula. It is a pretty good start, but it is really just a start, and in a technology world, it really oversimplifies the communication issue that you start with. So if we take this formula and just figure it out and run through it for a minute, let's say we have a small team. It's just 5 people in total. So 5 people times 5 minus 1, or 4, is 20. Divide that by 2, and we have 10 different communication lines. If you look at the whole picture, you'll have 10 different ways that communications happen within that little team. Double that, so we now have a 10-member team, and use the formula 10 times 9, 90, divided by 2, 45. So you went from 10 to 45 by doubling that team. So not quite a direct, it's much more exponential as things go on. So that's the concept behind this. You can see how when you do this and you're talking to an audience of hundreds or thousands, how messages can potentially go wrong. So many interpretations, so many different things that can happen with it. So we're going to take this formula just a little bit further and test out our polling process here. So I'd like you to take a second, make sure that you understand that formula, n times n minus 1 divided by 2, and then we're going to test out your knowledge around this formula. So my team has 35 members, it has a sponsor, and it has 9 stakeholders. So using that basic formula, how many communication channels do you think we have on this project? I'm starting to see some of the answers coming in here, so give people just a minute more to figure that out, and we'll go forward. And it looks like we have a pretty good audience here. It is a bit of a trick question, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what the results look like so far. The vast majority of you said that none of the above is the answer. And you're absolutely correct. There's a ton of answers coming in on the Q&A line as well. For those of you who thought it was bigger than any of those 3 answers, I'm guessing that a fair number of you thought it was closer to about 1,000, give or take, something like that. So those are the number of channels that are potentially available for you to communicate or possibly miscommunicate, depending on what you're doing. Very important that you make sure you get through this process, understand it, and move it on. If you have 50 people, 1,200 or so, 500 people, how about 125,000? Hugely bigger numbers, the bigger the project team becomes. So if you take that into account and look at the larger the project team, the greater the complexity, the more time you spend communicating, the more time as a project manager you need to spend on this. It's a nice source here. We've got that link in the deck for you so you can read a bit more about this in your leisure time. Hundreds and thousands of pathways. And if you want your team to learn something, it's often said that you can learn, the best way for people to learn is to hear the message 7 times in 7 different ways. So think about how many possibilities there are for the way information gets communicated. So that's the foundation of what we're talking about. We want to move on from there into what do we do in a social media age. That's the basis. We know there's thousands and thousands of potential ways people can talk to each other. When you talk about a social media age, this article from Mashable talked about 5 different levels of effective communication in the social media age. So if you're looking at it, you can see the 5 different ways that add a little bit more complexity to it. First one is called the public reply, and that would be things like Yammer or Facebook, things that you send out that are pretty open, pretty transparent. Even this webinar might fit into this session. No guarantee that the message is going to be received. I can't tell how many of you there are listening in the first place, how many are understanding, and so forth, because I don't have a feedback mechanism built into this yet. So that's the public reply kind of message. Then you can go to a direct message, which is something you might do, Twitter direct message, text messaging, whatever. It's direct, very limited amount of characters, very short. So the message you're sending there has to be pretty precise and concise. Email, of course, is a strong standard method of communication, much deeper, much more focused typically. You can forward it on, so you can send this message beyond the original scope of people. Can be a potential time drain. If any of you have been involved in email chains with 20 or 30 different messages hooked to it, it can take a long time to decipher all that information. The 4th method here is a 2-way communication, so whether it's a phone or link or Skype or any way that you can communicate interactively via audio, so you can hear, you can respond, you can't necessarily see body language. The next method, and then the final one, of course, is in person or using a video capability. So 2-way, which also then includes the nonverbal components. And in most communication, the majority of information that you get is through nonverbal means. So whenever you're in that kind of method of communicating, you need to be very careful that the nonverbal message is as strong, saying the things you wanted to say, as the verbal. So when you think about that, again, communication is a 2-way street. Three types of ways to look at it, different types of ways that you can communicate, and think about the feedback mechanisms or loops that you're going to be using for it. So formal methods, informal methods, and then the unofficial methods. And we'll explore those a little bit more here in a minute. Again, there's a resource there for you to get a little bit more information on this if you like. When you look at the messages, they can be a push mechanism, so you're sending it out, not necessarily expecting feedback, but it's pushing it out to people. Something like a tweet, maybe anything that's a one-way direction. You can also poll, so asking for data. A survey, feedback mechanisms is a poll method, and then of course interactive. So meetings, discussions, any of the other ways you can go about it. So we'll go into these different methodologies here, and this is the part that we'll be spending a lot more time doing demonstrations on moving forward. So of course formal things. These are all published. They're all typically some sort of official kind of thing. So plans, schedules, status reports, team sites, anything like that. They're going to be more formal. You need to spend a lot of time making sure that they're accurate. These are places where people who are project managers tend to spend tons and tons of their time trying to make things look pretty. With the automation that we have available through systems like Project Server, a lot of this can be automatic. So your time then can be devoted more to the other kinds of things that you need to do as a project manager in communications, such as the informal kinds of things around brainstorming, making sure that problems are being solved, doing all the risk mitigation, all the planning, and moving things forward, and of course celebrating successes. All of those kinds of things are as important, if not more important, than the formal communication methods that were on the previous slide. So this is where a project manager, once they've got everything working, should be able to spend the vast majority of their time. And then the final method, the one that where the real truth gets heard, is the unofficial grapevine method. So the things you hear over coffee, there's a ton that you can learn here. And for me as a project manager, I always think that this is the place where you need to do most of your listening rather than talking. You can do a lot of learning in these kinds of unofficial mechanisms. So one final thing, this is a technique that I learned many, many years ago, made my life much, much easier. So when I started a project, so putting together a project charter, putting together project plans, all of those kinds of details, think through the communication decisions that you as a project manager need to make. If you look at this matrix here, down the left side, you see who you need to be sharing information with. So your sponsors, stakeholders, team leaders, customers, maybe interfaces to other systems, many, 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 many different kinds of places who you need to talk to. Across the top, across the column headers, you'll have all of the different kinds of things you need to talk about. So your plan, your schedule, milestones, everything else that might be necessary to communicate. And then in the middle is in each one of the cells where those two components intersect, you want to think about the format and the timing of the communication that you're going to be doing. So now that we have social, a lot of this can be done via very simple, informal, more casual methods of doing things than could be done in the past. So many different things you can take advantage of to move this forward. One of the things that you want to do when you're preparing this sort of thing is put yourself in the other person's shoes. So if it's your sponsor, what is that sponsor going to be asking you? What are the questions you need to be prepared for? One that completely threw me off when I was a project manager, I had put everything together, had my status report, everything looked great. I thought the project was doing really well, and I put it in green status. My sponsor said, "Why do you think it's green? What do you have to prove that?" Completely threw me off. I didn't know how to answer that. I was very surprised. So advice would be make sure you put yourself in their shoes and think about what kinds of questions they might ask you so that you're very well prepared. So that's the basis of what we wanted to do. Now the next piece of this, I'm going to turn it over to Lou and let him take you through how this works in the current social world that we live in.
Very good. And before we move on, if you have any questions about what was just presented, please post them by using the question mark in your dialog box. We'll wait a second here to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. Take a quick look. No questions, so we're going to move on and talk about the social project experience. And really, when we talk about the social project experience, we're talking about it means where projects happen, where your people are, and it should also be where work gets done. And as organizations look at becoming more social, it's crucial to think beyond just a set of features. and start to understand how the social project management experience can help them achieve some of the key business needs. And you see some items identified here, but really we're talking about keeping project stakeholders up to date, breaking down silos, increasing the reuse of information, documenting tacit knowledge, finding who knows what, making collaborative decisions, and getting work done. And really, if you think about that, it's about getting connected, sharing knowledge, and working together. And getting connected is about breaking down those silos and getting people inside the organization using social networking and having them have that experience that is about not only what they do at their desk, but thinking about what's happening all the time, be able to connect whenever they need to. And sharing knowledge is, everybody realizes that organizations have a trove of information. A lot of it is informal, a lot of it is not structured or documented. And often we associate the fact that information isn't documented as a way to protect jobs. And more often than not, it's because the effort needed to document information and make it findable outweighs the benefits. So some of the techniques I'll demonstrate today make it a whole lot easier to get things out there for people to see, review, and comment on. And when we're talking about working together, we're talking about working together is truly representative of the connected experiences that we have, using things like Link and Sharepoint and Outlook and other things we'll talk about today, beyond how people work, and think about people working many different ways on many different applications and locations, all with the same goal: get more done in less time. So before we move on, we do want to do another quick poll here to see what you're currently using to manage projects. So if you could go ahead and answer this question, and we'll provide the results here in a second. Okay. So to take a look at the results here, we see that a little over half of the people participating in this webcast are using Microsoft Project on the desktop. And so one of the things we'll talk about today is, and we will feature Microsoft Project Desktop and how you can use that in your social project management communications. But we're going to expand beyond that to look at some of the things you get when you now go into the server world, whether it be Project Server or Project Online or similar tools. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So the first thing we'll talk about is connecting to your project team with Microsoft Project Desktop. And really what we're talking about with the new version of Project 2013 is the ability to use Link and the ability to also use the social connector available in Microsoft Office to communicate with your team. Using the Link presence, using IM, chat, video, and email, you can connect with your team directly while you're working in Microsoft Project. Another thing to note is that just by hovering over the name of somebody in the software allows you to go ahead and immediately start communicating with them and talk about things that may be going on in your Microsoft Project schedules. Getting status, asking questions, talking about long-term strategy discussions, you can do all that from within Microsoft Project. The nice thing about this is the setup, if you have the infrastructure in place, if you are using Link, the setup is automatic. And you can do that by, when you build out your resource pool, adding people via Active Directory or just the address book and getting them connected within the system. So let's go ahead and look at how this works from within Project 2013. So I'm showing here a Microsoft Project Schedule and Project Server in Project 2013. And those of you who may not have seen the tool today, the 2013 tool, what I like about it is the fact you get these visual reports and graphs that you can display in addition to the standard Gantt view that you're seeing here on the bottom. And so in the Gantt view, you'll notice I have a list of tasks out indented by the various phases. And you'll see that in the resource name column, I have the name of Rose here, who's also helping me who's doing the presentation here. And you see a green next to her name. And if I hover over that, you'll see I get the the presence indicator from using link. And at this point, I can start immediately communicating with Rose. I could do that by, if I hover over this, I can start an IM with her. I can call her and have a link meeting. I can also just start a video call, and since we both have cameras on our cameras on our PCs, we can have a video call, or I can just send her an email. All this is available with link presence. I can see that she's available, which I know she's not because she's in this meeting with me. But if she were not, what I like about link presence, it looks at your calendar if you're connected on Outlook and says she'll be available in 2 hours. The other thing I like, if I do the drop down here and open the contact card, I can get additional information about Rose. And let me do that again. For example, if I go to this What's New tab, this is where the social connector available within Outlook lets me, and with Rose being on LinkedIn, I can see some of the things that she's posted out on LinkedIn recently. So if I'm working with an external stakeholder, I want to know a little about what they're doing, who they're connected to, and things like that. I can actually, from within Microsoft Project, look at that connection in LinkedIn and see other things that are going on with this user. In addition, since we are an Office 365 user, we also have some of the other capabilities available in here. For example, this membership shows me what group Rose belongs to, and also from an organizational standpoint, who her direct reports are and things like that. So it's very easy for me to make this connection with Rose using the online presence. Now, this is available in a number of different views. Anywhere that you see a person's name in Microsoft Project, you can see this presence. So, for example, if I come here and I change my view to the team planner view, you'll notice the same thing. I have the presence here of Rose in the team planner view. And if I go to the resource sheet, I also have that same capability where I can hover over Rose's name, or myself, or Ty here sitting next to me. Now, to add somebody to the resource pool, I have the resource sheet presented. All I have to do is go to the resource tab, say Add Resources, and you can see here I can add them from Active Directory, or I can add them from the address book. And if I have link 2010 or higher and I'm using that, I can get that connection immediately. Alternatively, I can also just type in their email address. For example, if I do Patty M here and I put in her email address, I will immediately get her presence noted in the system.
And there are a few people who are having some trouble with the video right now, and then there are a couple of questions for you. So when you get to a pause point.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump back and look at questions here. So let me move on and move to the question portion.
And I can tell you what the questions were.
Sure.
They were mostly around, does this work in anything besides Project or Office 365? Or some people have Microsoft Project and they have Link, but they don't have this capability. So wondering what that is.
Okay, sure. So this is available if your internal organization is running the Office Communications Suite for Microsoft within the organization, or if you're using Office 365. So this is not only a you're not required to use Office 365 to have this capability. However, to get online presence, you do need to have the communications capability that's available within the Windows environment in order to use this. Any other questions?
I think that covers most of them. Hopefully people that are having trouble can refresh their screen. That seemed to work for most of the people who are having trouble. And you should be seeing a new screen now.
Very good. So now we're going to move on to beyond just Project on the desktop and talk about SharePoint and Project Server or Project Online. And SharePoint is really the basis for which Microsoft has their, I'll call their project portfolio management features. And SharePoint, if you're not aware of it, has its own set of social features and actually helps make projects social. There is a lot of new features available in the latest version of SharePoint, both the online and on the on-premise version. And they can actually help boost project productivity. They can help facilitate social interactions in your organization and across projects. You can do things such as follow people or documents or sites, and we'll get into all of this in the demo. You can share personal documents from your SkyDrive. and keep track of access to them. You can keep up to date with activities, interests, and also use feeds that are available across your company site or on your project sites to do that. And the nice thing about the latest version of SharePoint is this is not only available on your PC, but also on your phone, on your browser. You can basically access this project content from anywhere. As you're aware, with the using offline capabilities of the Office products and Windows, you can also do that. And it has full integration with Windows Phone capabilities. So when we talk about the social project experience, we're talking about making connections and bringing people together. And really, SharePoint allows you to use these social connections in a number of different ways. The first area is in the area of conversations. And conversations help you make connections and can spark creativity and enhance productivity of bringing people together from across the company. Some scenarios, for example, would be a project team member posts about a big hurdle they overcame and how they did it. And a peer might see that post and ask for advice that helps them solve a similar issue. Or a stakeholder mentions a process that's been confusing and frustrating to them as part of a comment, or we'll talk about later, which is a microblog. And a project team analyst might see it and suggest an alternative way to help them get through that issue. So we'll talk a little bit about microblogging, seeing the people's posts, and we already showed how you can hover over and see presence of people and connect with them immediately. Second area, people are always available. Now that's always, and when it comes to projects, that's sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing if you're the recipient. But you can always get in contact with people no matter what you're working on. And I think the key here is that you can do it across multiple platforms, whether it's mobile or you're working at your desk or you're using a browser. So examples here is where somebody or business apps may be looking for feedback on the requirements they are writing, and they can immediately get that by posting a comment or making an IM and getting people to help them provide feedback immediately. Or let's say a development lead on sees a theme of comments as feedback on a feature they put out there, and they can quickly start a discussion with the people who provide a comment and move on within their project. The third pillar here, we're talking about context and context-enriching interactions. Here, you're talking about your project can be more effective and professional when they have the full story of what's going on because they have access to all the documents and see what's going on within the project. This is an example where, for example, a project manager receives an email from a senior stakeholder and they can see a little bit about that data, like I did about Rose, about who her connections are, and then getting a more contextual information about who they're talking to and how they need to interact with them. And lastly, when we talk about, you always know what's happening, then you'll see here in a second when I talk about the feed information is available in SharePoint. You can get a constant feed of information and know what's going on and not wait for those weekly or monthly status meetings.
And while Lou is moving on here, I know there are a lot of questions coming in right now. We're going to continue with the presentation for the most part and answer some of these as we can moving forward. In general, the questions tend to be around the use of all of these technologies when they don't have Project Server and Project 2013. Things around SharePoint, safety, and things like that. So we will try to get to most of those towards the end of the presentation.
Very good. So when we talk about communications and in this new world, what we call social project communications, it's not just about features. It's really about the ability for people to stay up to date with the information they care about, help people to get to know each other and share information that's important. Now, just getting this right would save a huge number of unneeded, duplicated interactions and allow people to spend time on just getting their work done. And really, the heart of the social project experience with SharePoint is the news feed, and we'll show that capability here. It's a summary of all your social interactions, from your microblogs to community conversations across sites, content, and people that you know. And the news feed, as we'll show, gives people the ability to post, reply to others' comments, say whether or not they like them, and give that immediate feedback that you're looking for. You can use, I'll show you that you can use hashtags, or you can follow people with mentions and get all that interaction going on within your projects. And there are multiple feeds that will demonstrate, and they all get consolidated into your single news feed. And you not only can follow things such as people, but you can also follow documents, you can follow sites, you can follow tags, or tags being things that you're interested in knowing and following. So when we think about project communications and collaborations, we don't want to limit it to where and when somebody can collaborate. With Project Server or Project Online and SharePoint, we're bringing the breadth of experiences to all devices and to all places, and we'll be delivering, there'll be mobile applications, other things where you can keep up to date with what's going on in projects. So to move on here, let's talk a little bit about some of these features that we'll be showing. The first is really in SharePoint, it's called the My Site, which is really the landing page for what's going on. And it summarizes what's going on as far as posts, people profile changes, what's happening on documents, when people are mentioning and liking folks, and also what's happening out on sites. It also shows you the folks that you're following and the trends, tags that are trending within your organization. The next major area is really about yourself, and the fact is that you can promote yourself within the organization and let people know what you know about and where you are in the organization. So it includes things such as your summary background, contact information, your recent activities, what other people in the organization have things that are in common with you, and it's basically organizational information, including the org chart and other things such as that. The next major area in here is about tasks and sort of looking at all the tasks that you have assigned with you across your organization. And these can be personalized tasks. You can have visibility of what's going on in your organization, and with Project Online or Project Server, you can also see the tasks that you have that have been assigned to you throughout your projects. And within the task configuration, what's nice to note is that tasks can be aggregated to you and presented to you from SharePoint, from things such as Project Server, from SharePoint task lists, and directly from Microsoft Exchange and things that come from Outlook. And we'll demonstrate that capability. And the fact is that these then get presented on your own My Site, on your own personal timeline with important tasks and things such as that are being consolidated from one single place. So enough talking about this. Let's go ahead and demonstrate some of this capability. And let me just share my screen here.
Yeah, I'm seeing the screen coming up. If you're having trouble with that on your particular computer, again, you might refresh your browser, and that may help.
Okay, so I'm logged in as a username Sarah Davis, and Sarah is we'll see who Sarah is when we look at her profile here in a second, but she's a project manager within this organization. And those of you who may not have seen Project Server before, Project Server hosts the list of all your projects and tasks, and like I mentioned earlier, it's actually a SharePoint application. So this is running, I'm actually running on Project Online and Office 365. It's very similar or the same as it works on-premise. There are a few differences that we'll talk about here. And the heart of Project Server or Project Online is the Project Center. So when I go to the Project Center here, you'll see a list of projects and a timeline, what's going on. And you can imagine within these projects, there are tasks that have to be done. And so myself as a project manager would be interested in what's going on here. And one of the things you'll notice here in my list of projects is that I have a number of different projects in certain various phases. And when you see visibility mode here, that's actually not actually a project that exists in Project Server. It's actually just a SharePoint site that has just a list of tasks on it, and that I would be assigned to. But for Sarah to know what's going on in her world, you'll see up here the social parts of SharePoint and Project Server are represented by these links up here. Now, the first one I'm going to go to is what's called the newsfeed link. So I'm now on Sarah's My Site, and you can see she's got a feed of what's going on within her organization. You can see here that she has various posts of things that people are presenting, and she can also see things like things she's liked and what she's following here. And so she can see the latest post here from Garth Forts that says, Sarah Davis is helping me prepare for the Dynamics CRM certification test. Thank you, Sarah, for helping me. And since Garth Fort gave me a nice little kudos there, I'm going to say I like that. And so that like will be recorded, and that gets recorded in the overall feed of tasks that are going on here. In addition, you can see that that Sarah's following some people, and there are some mentions here. So the other thing I can do is I can just select the following tag and see who Sarah's following, and then also look at the mentions that have been made here within here. So you can see that things that are mentioned by Garth and other things such as that. So my news feed helps me identify what's going on in my project world and things such as that. Now, for people who know about me, I can just select the About Me button, and now we can see that here's things about Sarah and her activities. I'll select this Show More button to see, that I don't know if you can read this, but some of the past projects that Sarah's been involved in has been the e-campaign to bloggers, some of her skills about project management, PPM, business analysis, and Sarah can actually come in here and edit her profile and provide additional information. So this is a nice way for you to have people in your organization share some basic information about themselves. You can see here Sarah says she's a project manager that specializes in dynamic CRM implementations and CRM business processes. Her contact information, she could put mobile phone and other information and other details in here, such as her past projects, her skills, and other things such as that. And on the right-hand side, you can see that she can share this information. She has a choice of sharing this with everybody or just herself. So she can just keep things personal here or just let everybody else know about what's going on in her world. Now, the other thing, in addition to the basic information that's available to her, she also can see her tasks. So here, if I go to the task page, we can see that Sarah can now look at all the tasks that are involved. And these are tasks that are consolidated from multiple places, including from her personal Outlook task list, from Exchange, from SharePoint sites, and from Project Server and project sites. So what I'm looking at here, what's called the Important and Upcoming view, and when I get on the top is a timeline of tasks that are coming from these multiple places. I can see today and what's going on. And you can see I have a few tasks that are tagged with this exclamation point as being important. These are the things that I have tagged. Now, if I want to see all of my tasks, I can just select this active link here. And the active link will actually show me tasks across all those projects. And a lot of these projects are coming from Project Server or Project Online itself. And I can see these tasks, and I can see basic information about them and such. And if this view gets too busy for me, you can see I have a lot of tasks that are assigned to me. What I can do then is go to the filter here and just filter what's going on and just unclick certain projects and have them not show up in my view. So this is a quick view of what's going on in my world on my task page and what I can do. You can also see here that I can also, if I want to, jump to my timesheet in Project Server or my task status reporting page and provide an update that way. And so if you're using Project Server, you can actually directly go from your My Task page to the task status reporting page in the software solution there. And if I go to task reporting, if I jump to that, you'll see I get what's called the My Task page in Project Server, and from here I can see more of a Gantt view of what's going on in the projects that I'm assigned to. And if I want to, I can then jump to my timesheet and record time if that's a requirement for my project to actually record time what's going on in my world. So all that I can do directly from my newsfeed and from my task page and get directly access to the task that I'm assigned to. So any questions at all come up regarding tasks?
So there are several questions out here that it might be worthwhile to pause and answer a few of them. Mm-hmm. The first one that I have here is around the communication formula that we did much earlier in the process. And the questions are, did the social media change the formula? The answer is no. The formula is the formula. It is what it is. I just believe that because of all of the social media components and the way that the speed at which things fly these days with all of that, it makes it just a much more complicated component to deal with. But the number of ways different individuals can touch different individuals within a project is still the same number. So that was one question. Beyond that, how do you get reluctant members to use social media? Interesting question. I think it is a cultural thing, so depending on your organization and your organization's culture, it sometimes is an easy thing to do, other times it's not easy at all. It can be very complicated. Within our own organization, we're a very high-tech company. We use a lot of different things to the point that some of it overwhelms us at times, and you have to actually just shut it off in order to get any work done. So it's all a balancing picture, depending on the kind of organization you have and the culture you have. We do try to do a few things with incentives in order to make certain things work out better and use them within a project team. So sometimes that will work. Have some kind of a contest to see how you can make it work. You have to get pretty creative as a project manager to get that reluctance to go away. And I've also found that if you just regularly tell people that the status report will be at this location at this time and commit to that and get it accomplished, they will learn over time to do that. I don't necessarily think you're going to use Yammer to do strategic planning. You're going to use that for much more informal, casual kinds of conversations. So when it works, and other times it just, you use the standard talk to each other kind of method. Okay, so questions for you, Lou, and these you may address later on in your presentation, so we can reserve them if you'd like. Is there a roadmap to incorporate Yammer into Project Online?
Yes, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you how you can incorporate Yammer into here. And actually, it's one of the methods we talk about with communicating with external stakeholders, where you can actually put create a Yammer site and invite external stakeholders, and then have that feed show up on your project site. So I will talk about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a point here, using Link for long-term strategy discussions. No, that would be a little bit difficult, I think, to use Link for that, although we use Link internally because of our virtual nature. We use Link as our face-to-face communication method. We have full capabilities for audio, visual, so it's almost as good as being in the same room, and in some cases we don't have any choice. So when we have people working all over the country or in different places around the world, sometimes you just have to deal with it that way. Question here on Office 365. Do these things only work in Office 365? I think you answered that earlier. Mm-hmm. How safe is Sharepoint? Work with really sensitive information.
Yeah, Sharepoint is very secure. I mean, basically, it has the top Microsoft security mechanisms available within it, and as with anything, it's on how you set it up. So depending, if you have very secure documents, you can ratchet things down. And there's also something available within SharePoint called digital rights management, which basically encrypts documents where they get stored and only certain people can have access to them. So it's very secure.
Okay, why don't we go back to the presentation, and then we'll pick up with the rest of the questions after that.
Yeah, just to round out the demo here is the fact that you'll see it says start a conversation and share with anybody, and you'll note that what I want to note is you don't have to do, you can start this right from your newsfeed page, and some of the things we'll talk about in a second that you're probably seeing on the feeds is tags and mentions. So what's nice is you can do it right from your page and just put a comment out there for everybody to see, or if you're actually doing this from a project site, you can actually do that from within a project and talk specifically about a project, and I'll show that here in a little bit. So what's nice is sometimes you have those spur moment ideas, and you say, hey, I want to just put something out there for either everybody to see, or specifically converse with a specific person. But what's nice about these share with everyone features, you can get quick feedback from everybody. And then, so we'll move on here and talk a little bit about once that information is out there, how can you make sure that you're notified of it? And that's really done with what's called following. So let me move on here in the presentation. So, as with a lot of the social applications that are out there, you can actually follow a number of different things within SharePoint. One is the first thing is you can follow people, and follow people lets you keep track of the people and the content related to your projects. Specifically, what you would want to do if you're in this social project world is you'll start following people involved in your projects. Your project team members, subject matter experts who may be related to what your project is delivering or whether it's about, or key members of your support teams who are supporting, let's say, an application or some other function that is involved with your project. You can actually start following people from a number of different points. SharePoint has a great search capability, so if you search and find people, you can actually start following from there, from the news feed that I just showed you, and actually from the people page. So following people is a good way to keep up to date with what's going on about the project. And like I said, but you don't have to wait for that weekly or monthly status report meeting. You can actually see what's going on a daily or hourly basis by just following people. The next thing you can follow in SharePoint is actually the site. Now, SharePoint is structured to have sites, and if you're using Project Online or Project Server, there are actually project sites or collaborative spaces associated to your projects. And just by following the site itself, you can actually get updates about what's going on and have those activities channeled through your newsfeed. So this is another way to say, hey, I've got of doing Project X. I follow the site for Project X, and as things are being updated on that site, I can be notified about via my newsfeed about what is actually happening. The next thing you can actually follow in SharePoint is documents, and this is where there may be key deliverables or other documents that are being prepared for and used in your projects. This includes both project management documents, such as charters or scope documents, or the actual deliverables themselves. Once they're out there, you can get notified of things that are happening by just following them. Now, this doesn't replace the alerts feature of SharePoint, but it is, because it does get fed through your news feed, it's a much more streamlined fashion of following what's going on and knowing what's going on within your project, and you don't get all those email notifications you're probably used to from getting alerts on SharePoint sites if you're a SharePoint user. Lastly, the thing you can do is follow tags. Now, if you're not familiar with tags in SharePoint, tags lets you keep track of things or specific subjects or activities. There are a couple different types of tags. One is what I'll call informal tags. You can put these directly in your microblog posts, and these are considered informal. And the official term is like following what's called a folksonomy of just subjects that you might be interested in. The other types of tags are more formal tags that use the SharePoint capability related to what's called the term store, and these are more of a structured tag that you can use. And both these are available within your blog post. And once something is created in tags, you can automatically follow it or you reuse that tag by just using the hashtag sign. And I'll show that here in the demonstration. Now, what's nice, on your personal page, all these items I mentioned, the people, the documents, the sites, and the tags, you have a summary on your My Site page, and you can easily get information about the number of people you're following, the number of documents and such, and then click on down through that and get access to those quickly with a single click of information. So I'll go ahead and show you how the following feature works within SharePoint.
And while you're switching to that, Lou, there are a few questions out here around the capabilities that you're showing right now on following. Is it only available in SharePoint 2013? And another question around, is it the newsfeed option only available in Office 365?
Okay, well, the newsfeed feature is available in SharePoint 2013 and in Office 365. So if you're an on-premise user of SharePoint, you would need to be on the 2013 feature of that. As far as following, I believe there was some lightweight following in SharePoint 2010. I'd have to check that, but it's really, the social features in 2013 have really taken off and I think really expanded. And I think what you'll see here today is will spark your interest about looking at this either via Office 365 or through SharePoint 2013.
Yeah, I think you'll see that some of these things were introduced, like tags and such, were introduced with 2010, but they weren't used as much, and 2013 has certainly enhanced it quite a bit.
Okay. So you see here that on Sarah's news feed, she's following some things from Garth and herself, and you see she's following some people here. But I'll show you how she can start following a new person. So Jan Kotis has just joined the organization, and she's another project manager. So Sarah's aware of that. She wants to find out a little bit more about Jan and start following her. So I'll go here, and on the search box, I'll say search people, and from there I'll just do Jan Kotis and do a search there. And so the search results will bring up Jan here, and Sarah can immediately click on the profile for Jan, or she can just come down here and say follow. And now she's immediately starting to follow Jan, and says you're now following this person. And so, if she wants to get a little more information, she can actually click on this link and find a little bit more about Jan. And Jan is a project manager in the IT organization. She says feel free to mention me or ask about me and things, but because Jan is fairly new, not a lot of activities going on. She just joined the organization. But now, as she starts creating content, to start posting things, Sarah can be made aware of those through her news feed. And you'll notice back here now, I don't know if you noticed before there was 2, she's now following 3 people. And in fact, she actually clicks on that, we'll see that now Jan has been added to the people she's following in addition to Garth Fort and Robin Katz. And you can see here we also have a statistic of the number of people she's following and the number of people that are following her. So you can actually see who's following you. So if she clicks my follow, so you can see that Garth Fort and Robin are actually following her. So that's an example of how you can follow people. So next thing I want to do is show how you can follow sites. Now you can see up here that on the links here I've got sites. So if I click on that, you can see that it says here's the sites that Sarah's following. And she's following some of these projects, some of these sites that are coming from Project Server. Some are just like the community site that we'll talk about next, and other things. So just to show you how all this works, if I go to, for example, this skills inventory management site, you can see up here on the upper right of the site there's a follow with a star, and that's all it takes. All you have to do is go to a SharePoint site and select follow, and you're automatically noting that you're following the site. Now down on the site here, you'll see that there's a newsfeed button, and this is what I was talking about before, that you don't only have to post from your own newsfeed site, from your own personal site, but on the site itself there's a newsfeed, and you can see that Sarah previously has posted a comment down here that says, I've experienced at a prior company implementing an HR system with, you see that pound, which is a tag, skills inventory features. Let me know if you'd like some background on what we did. And I'll just put another post here that says, for example, I use the @ sign here, @ for Garth, and I worked on the, I'll use a tag here, start SK, skills inventory project together. So letting other people know that both her and Garth were involved in that project. So again, here's a project she's working on. She's trying to communicate out to the world out there that here's an area where she has experience. Now, it's not one of her projects. She's not responsible for it, but here's an idea where you can expand the knowledge throughout an organization by just posting comments such as that on the sites that you're involved in. And you can see here when I come back to her homepage here, so you can see that that this is discussed there. Now, the other thing you can follow is documents. And I'm going to go and drill down through documents here. So you can see that there are various documents that she's following, and it also gives her suggestions of documents to follow. And some of these documents are coming from a couple of different places. One they're coming from Sarah's own SkyDrive. So SkyDrive is your personal document space that you have out in Office 365. And other documents are coming from, for example, this one's coming from Garth Fort's his SkyDrive. So you can follow documents on other people's SkyDrive. And you can also follow documents on project workspaces. So if I go to Sarah's SkyDrive here, so she has a folder called Dynamics Product Information, and then here's all the documents that she's following, and also some recent documents that she's involved with. So this is very helpful if you're working on projects such as Sarah is. If I go to these sites, and let's say if I go to the project server deployment site here, and you can actually create documents and have them followed here out on the site itself. So this is very helpful if you're working on projects and you want to know, what's happening with those and such. The last area of things we can follow are tags. And I showed the example of tags. I used that skills inventory tag earlier, and you can see I get this little trending thing. I also have a tag here called CRM because Sarah here is involved in a number of different projects related to CRM. If I select that tag itself, we can see all the relevant conversations and things going on that were related to CRM. And here we can see an example for where Robin counts. Somebody else said, hey, Garth did an awesome job on our last project. His PowerPoint presentation gave the VP some great information, and then Garth actually replied back to that and said, thanks, Robin, it was a great team effort. So, and that's all because we're following the tag called #CRM. And like I mentioned earlier, tags can be either informal tags such as this, or they can be formal tags that you have as part of your overall taxonomy. So you can see here that following things basically helps the community share information and lets you keep track of those by using things such as tags and by using an @ sign and @ mention of people who you're involved with. Like down here, which is @Garth, it's actually mentioned Garth within that. So I'll pause here to see if any questions all about following.
We have quite a few questions. We'll try to get to some of them, keeping in mind that we have about 30 minutes left for the whole thing. So there's a question, can you endorse someone in SharePoint? Can you vouch for their ability or give kudos?
Oh, that's leading up to my next part of the presentation. So if you can hold on there, I'll show you a little bit about endorsing people and also let you enhance their reputation. Okay.
A few general questions for you, Lou. Can we collaborate outside organizations using these tools, such as with vendors or partners?
Yes, I'll show you how you can use Yammer to do that and how you can embed that within your project site. So when we get to the Yammer part, I'll show you how you can do that with outsiders. Also, you can invite your external partners to Office 365, but they have to be part of your subscription.
And there is a question around Office 365. If you're configured with, if you have Office 365 and you configure for Yammer integration, news feeds go away. So there's a question about, is there going to be integration of project with Yammer in the future?
There is a roadmap for Yammer and SharePoint. If you actually do a Bing search on Yammer and SharePoint, you can find the link to that roadmap and the conversations going on with that within the Microsoft Tech community. So there is you are correct that in setting up Office 365, it says, do you want to use Yammer or do you want to use news feeds? As part of the communications component, it is our understanding that is being brought together. The project conference, we'll talk about that in a little bit, is happening in a few weeks, and it's my understanding there's going to be some presentations by Microsoft talking about that integration also.
Okay. Another question around that, I think you may have covered it already. How does Yammer work with projects as it is replacing or enhancing news feeds?
Yeah. Okay.
Same component there.
Yeah, we'll show you what's happening today, and like I said, there's a lot of discussions happening out there with Microsoft.
Okay, a couple more questions, just general questions around the different versions of project and how it connects with different things. So can you connect SharePoint with Project 2013 desktop?
Yes, yes. You can. That's one of the scenarios you have where you can actually have Project Desktop connected to SharePoint and share your project tasks out there on a project task list. So you don't need the fuller version of Project Server. You can connect it and put your tasks out there and get all the great capabilities we're talking about here for using the social features.
Okay. And then a couple of question that goes back a couple of versions here. Project 2007. We're going to test your knowledge, Lou. Is it possible to export your project to Excel?
Yes, it is. You can export it to Excel and then use that to share information, although we recommend you, if you can, upgrade that to the latest version, which is also available online through subscription. and your projects will upgrade from 2007 to 2013 if you do that.
And one more little question around those kinds of things. If you copy a network diagram and paste in Word or Excel, is it possible to do that with editable boxes? In 2010, it's just a picture.
Editable boxes.
So does it work like some of the other things like Excel? I think is the way that this might be interpreted. If you grab an Excel spreadsheet and put it in Word, you can still do some of the capabilities of Excel.
Does that work with
a network diagram?
With the Visio, I assume that he means with the Visio capabilities? I believe it does, but I'm not sure what the underlying software there would be.
Probably with some limitations given network diagrams. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is social collaboration. And this is really, I think the person who talked about reputation and things like that, this is really what we're talking about is communities. And we know that organizations have large amounts of information spread across repositories, and so how do you share that information? And what they've introduced in SharePoint 2013 is to have what are called communities, or I like to call them discussion boards, very rich discussion boards with rich text capabilities and things like that. These can be self-service communities where you can have an administrator or moderator manage the discussions. And also it can be used to track achievements and reputation of the people in there. And in addition, you can have things such as project logs and other things such as that. But we'll share some of the capabilities you have with these communities, but in using it in a social project context, I like to think in terms of sharing information about specific capabilities or project, project capabilities or things that people need to know about, and you need to disseminate information. So communities in SharePoint 2013, SharePoint Online, are organized by categories. And you have presentation pages that are really wiki pages. It means you don't have to be a programmer to actually put content out there, and you can cut and paste rich text and graphics and diagrams out there. They're very easy to customize. And then users can rate and like things that they see, and they can also vote on them or give them stars. They can also comment on them. And basically by doing that, you bubble up the conversation about what's going on, or you can actually post a question and have people immediately respond to that. So it has things such as reputation, moderation. You can also tag a reply as the best reply, and that people will know that's the best answer if you pose a question out there and things such as that. So the key to this is having dialogues or conversations, having people reply back to those. And like I mentioned, you can use best replies for having those things bubble up. You can associate points depending on the amount of people, how people are participating in these communities. You can assign points to people, and they can earn badges. And you can also assign badges to people based on whether or not they're an expert, so people know they're the go-to person in the community. And lastly, earning badges, it's just a matter of accumulating points. So to be a good somebody who participates, you'll want to monitor what's going on in the community, respond, apply to it, and of course, everything channels up through your news feed, so you can actually see what's going on in these communities itself as you participate in them. So let's go ahead and demonstrate community. And for this example, I actually created a community around the PMO. So let me go ahead and share my screen here.
And while you're doing that, Lou, there's just a philosophical question here. How big should a company be that it'd be worth or rational to use the tools that you're presenting? Which I think is an interesting question, and I can give you my opinion for what it's worth. It's really not the size of the community or the company as much as it is the complexity. So if you happen to all be located in one place, you're all sitting next to each other, I think it makes a whole lot more sense to use all of the tools that you have there to do your communication face-to-face. There's nothing that ever replaces face-to-face communication. But when things get more complicated than that, you have people working from home, you have people working around the globe in different places. You need other tools to make it easier. Things move too quickly. So it's more a matter of that. Our company is not huge, but we have people all over in different states across the United States, in different countries, doing work for different people. There's no way for us to manage without using these tools. Do we use them all? And do we use them on every project? No, it's all very project dependent. So that's my opinion. Didn't give you a good number, but I think it really depends on your environment.
Okay, so as part of this community demo, I'm going to actually be logged in as two different people. Currently logged in as Garth Ford, you can see up here on the right. And you notice he's navigated to the PPM community page, and on here there's a bunch of discussions going on around basically project management and what's happening if you're part of a project management office. And you can see discussions going on here, like what are the best techniques for managing scope changes, or what risks should I monitor closely. And these are all based on certain categories. So you can categorize the discussions that you have, and these nice little web parts that Microsoft provides lets you see the number of discussions going on, the number of replies and things that are going on in these categories. And you can jump right to these. But before I do that, let me go back to the home page here. I actually had to become a member of the community. So you can see here I have this. Garth's not a member. We see Sarah and Robin are. So I'm going to go ahead and select Join this community. And then by doing that, I can now start contributing to this community. And you can see right now Garth has now become a member of the community. So he can go in here and look at what's going on, or look at some of the members and such. So, so you can see a question that comes up, what are the best techniques for managing scope changes? So if he selects that and drills into it, he can actually see what's going on. We can see that Robin has already replied to that out. She says, I always start with a well-defined work breakdown structure that helps define all the deliverables on the project. And if and Garth can say, hey, I like that reply, so he can immediately do a like on that, and then he can also add his own reply and say, I also, oops, if I can type, like to prepare a detailed budget. And so he's out there replying to this out on the community site. So you can see how the community sites work. Now let's go behind the scenes. I'm going to go back to Sarah here, who's actually the moderator of the community site. Let me just refresh this so you can see what's going on. And now she can see, now again I'm logged into Sarah here, and she can see that Garth has joined, and she can see on here that there was a latest reply here by Garth, and she sees there are 2 replies and 2 likes. And so she can jump into that and see that reply. In addition, she can also see the amount of participation going on by the members here. So she can see here that Garth has 1 reply, that Robin has 1 reply, and that there are 4 discussions going on the site and such. And so she can set out to look at the reputations and say, hey, I want to start making sure that people earn their reputation on the site. So by selecting reputation settings, she can actually go out there and determine, for example, how many points people get by posting in this community. See, if you create a new post, they'll get 10 points. If they reply to one, they'll get 10. And if they, members who receive replies get ratings of 4 or 5 stars get 10, and then the reply that gets marked as the best reply gets 100 points. And that's how people earn their reputation and such in the community. And if we go back, we can actually see, if we look at the members here and look at who the top contributors are, we can actually see how all that is going on here in the community and such. And you can see next to everybody's name, they have a little gray block here, and as you reply or your reply gets ranked as the best reply, your reputation will go up and you'll get more boxes filled in here on the right. You can also create badges. You can tag somebody as an expert or a professional, so people will know that they're the person to go to within the community and such. So a lot of nice features available within the community tools, and I think this is a really nice feature for starting dialogues about things that may not be specifically related to your project or such. So I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions at all about communities and some of the other community settings that are available to you?
Okay, I'm looking at the questions. There are various questions around functionality. How does SharePoint interact with LinkedIn? Not around communities per se, but
yeah, actually there's a number of different ways you can. Within SharePoint, there are the ability to install apps on sites, and so if you go to the SharePoint store, you can actually look for apps, do a search on LinkedIn, and you can see some of the apps that relate that information. But most of the interface with LinkedIn is through the social connector that's available through Outlook and your Outlook connection. So if you are connected to LinkedIn and you are looking to make that connection via Outlook, you will actually get that information available to you in your profile. Like I showed earlier when I connected to Rose and I saw her linked information. That was because I was connected to Rose via LinkedIn and because I had the social connector in Outlook.
Okay, and one other general question here. In Project Server, is there a function that allows you to see lessons learned per project? Is there a functionality that allows you to group projects and see summary data per group? So a more general question around Project Server.
Yeah, out of the box, Project Server does not provide a lessons learned capability. However, what we have done for a lot of organizations is on the SharePoint site itself is to add a custom list about lessons learned or add a document on lessons learned. And by using a list, you can actually share that across projects. Now, what you're looking at here is also another way you could do that. You can have a lessons learned, you can create a lessons learned community and have people post lessons learned that they've had on projects, and that'll be more generic. Or if you want to do it for specific projects and have that shared, you can do that on the project site itself.
And then for the second part of that question, ability to group projects. Yes, you can group projects in a variety of different ways. There's a lot of metadata capability for grouping projects into programs or organizations or various kinds of ways that you might be able to organize it and then see summary data by that group. So yes, many, many capabilities there. One more question, and then I know we are running out of time here, so we need to move on. In order to find a specific community, how much of the name was required in the search box?
Probably not a lot. We can go ahead and test that. But if I go to the news feed here and I search and I type PMO, because it was a PMO community, well, no, right, it showed up on the top of my list. All I had to do was type in the first couple letters and it popped up at the top of my list here.
Okay. So we're recognizing we only have a little over 10 minutes left, so we're going to be bringing things to a conclusion.
Okay. Last thing I just wanted to show before we summarize is the Yammer capability. Just a couple of things. It sounds like a lot of people on the call know about Yammer. It's a private social network. You include stakeholders, external stakeholders, and track down on project teams or sites. And so I'll just show a quick little demonstration here of Yammer and how that would show up, where that would show up on a project site. So let me go ahead and do that. And let me just go ahead and just show you, if you're not familiar with Yammer itself, here's a page I created for Yammer. Let me hide everything else first and show that. So I created a site on Yammer called MS-PPM Social, and you can see I posted a survey out there that the people in this community could reply to. I also did an event for this webcast. This is Bacchi is presenting the social network integration webinar for Microsoft. I can also just post different comments or updates out there related to this community. Now, if you're part of it's not showing? Okay, hold on. Let me go back. I know what I forgot to do. Hold on. I think I forgot to share. Let me start sharing. Sorry about that, folks.
That's if we don't share, we don't get anything.
Okay, so now do you see my MSPPM
Yes,
social
much
page?
better, thanks.
So you can see that I'm part of this Yammer community called MSPPM Social, and I can have a survey out there. I can post an event, I can post a comment, and just like what I showed you earlier, people would have visibility to this. What I recommend this be used for in the online project server world is really where you're trying to communicate with external stakeholders. So let me go to sites here for Sarah, and on one of the sites she's doing this on is this Health Assessment Reporting Tool site. And again, you can set up your Yammer feed, relate to your organization. You can see on here I've added this web part, which is you can freely download from the Sharepoint store, and I can have my Yammer feed show up on my site. I do have to sign up with my Yammer account now because I'm using a demo site. I can't log in with mine, but this is where I can add a web part within a project site so I can see this and I can actually communicate with my external stakeholders related to this project. I can share documents, I can do polls, I can basically I am with them with that client, and all of that communication will show up here on my Sharepoint site. Good.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're going to now be wrapping up our presentation. And I apologize in advance if we were not able to answer all of your questions. I will give you an email in a minute here so that if there's something specific you want to ask, you can get that information answered. So we'll try to move forward here. Okay. So we're just going to wrap things up quickly, and you've seen a lot of technology here. If you're like me, it tends to overwhelm you. There's so much you can do, so many capabilities, but the bottom line is you're a project manager, you have to run a project, and your goal is to be successful in doing that. So our guidance to you, our advice to you is to appreciate and understand the need and the value of a communication plan. Make sure you know what technologies are available to you and how you're going to use them when you get started. So there's a lot out there. You don't have to use it all, and in many cases you don't want to use it all. It's not going to necessarily be helpful. So make sure you get the right things, and then you'll be in control of your project so that you can be successful. So let's go on to the fun part of this. Thank you all very much for sticking with us through this whole process. Now we're going to do giveaways. So we have 3 different things for you to look at here. First one is a tool that QuantumPM offers. Then some copies of Project Professional 2013. So for those of you who are stuck with the 2007, this would be a great time to grab one of those. And the project conference information. So moving on, what we'd like you to do is take a look here at this email address, thansen@quantumpm.com, and Tylene is ready to take all of your emails to her. We're going to provide a free copy of QSA to the 1st, the 15th, and the 50th person to send an email to Tylene. So please feel free to go ahead and bombard her with spam all that you want, and we will reply with a download of that software and the license key for it. This is a tool that helps you as a project manager to manage your schedule, and you can do a lot of checks with it that will save you tons and tons of time. So that's number 1. Also, any of you who had questions and we were not able to get to them during our time frame here, please feel free to use that email, and I'll ask Tylene to make sure that that email then gets forwarded to Lou or I so that we can make sure that we answer those questions for you offline. So if everyone has that one, we'll move on to incentive number 2. Thank you for attending this live, and as a live participant in it, 4 attendees are going to get a copy of Project Professional 2013. So you're going to get notified via email, and the list will be available at this site here shortly. So good luck to all of you. Hopefully you'll be one of the lucky people that got one of those. And last but not least, Microsoft is hosting a project conference in a little less than 2 weeks in Anaheim, California, so February the 2nd through the 5th. We will be out there, and we would love to have you join us there, so please do check into it. There should be a lot of very good sessions for you to learn more about all of these different tools. And if you're planning to, or you've been thinking about going to that session, Microsoft is offering an incentive to do that. So there is a 10% discount on the price for getting into it if you use the code PCSSP10 when you log on to that site. So please do that. And if you do come to the conference, we would love to see you in person. We'll be in booth 208, so stop by and say hello to us and let us know that you're there, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. So I think that about wraps it up for us. If there is anything else, any questions that you have, please do send a note to Tylene for us, and we'll be happy to answer that offline. Thank you very much for joining us.